Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I still see that the number of attendees is climbing a little bit, so we'll wait for that to level out just a little bit, so we should get started shortly. All right, it looks like we have a good amount of people here, so we can go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today for the third webinar of Kittleson Career Conversations. So if you attended either of the first two webinars, we're really glad that you're back. But if you haven't, it's really great to meet you, and we're really excited that you're tuning in today. My name's April, and I'm going to be your MC for this evening. Our speakers today are Caitlin Mildner, a planning associate in our Washington, D.C. office, and Joceline Suhaimi, a transportation analyst in our Southern California office. You can see them here on the screen. Caitlin and Joss are both former interns, and they're both now a part of our internship program team here at Kittleson. So this webinar is the third of 7 mini webinars that we have in our Kittleson Career Conversation series. Each conversation is about a different aspect of what a career in transportation looks like. The last two webinar recordings you can see there. They're now available to access on our event page if you didn't get a chance to join the live conversations. And then the next webinar in the series is going to be on Monday, November 9th. So we're hoping that you're going to join us again if you're interested in hearing more about transportation planning projects here at Kittleson. And then after that session, we're going to take an even deeper dive into projects, and that's where you're going to learn a little bit more about our transportation operations projects and design projects from a few of our experts. And then we're going to wrap up the whole series with a webinar on innovation and research in transportation. So now on to today's virtual conversation, which I'm sure you're all dying to hear more about. We're going to be talking about Kittleson's internship program, how it's structured, and how we've modified it during COVID-19. So Caitlin and Joss are going to be covering the topics that you now see on the screen today in a little less than 30 minutes, and the rest of our time is going to be all about the questions that you guys send in. We've already received great questions from the RSVP form, and we're excited to dive into those during the Q&A session, but I do still encourage you to continue sending in questions throughout the discussion today using the question chat box in your GoToWebinar panel, and we'll get to as many of those as we can at the end. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Joss to get us started.
Hi everyone, like April said, my name is Joss and I am a former Kittleson intern and currently a transportation analyst in the Southern California office, and I'm coming to you from my apartment in Southern California. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what our intern program has kind of traditionally looked like before we sort of go into what happened in 2020. So going into that, so traditionally, our internship program, we hire about a dozen students from universities across the country to be a part of this program. And we hire interns from both undergraduate and graduate degree programs in multiple majors. So in the past, we've had interns who range from college freshmen to PhD students in majors ranging from engineering and planning all the way to business and finance. So what we really look for is an interest and a passion in transportation, and we really like to immerse our interns into the culture and the offices at Kittleson. We encourage interns to relocate and intern in a new location, somewhere that they preferably have never been before. And interns are traditionally treated like entry-level staff and have full-time 40-hour-a-week project workloads. So interns are asked to participate in a number of different activities throughout the summer. There are weekly intern meetings, so you actually sit on a call with your intern class of a dozen or so people. You have one-on-one discussions with the CEO, which is actually really, really cool. I remember in my intern program, within the first couple weeks, I was asked to schedule a meeting with the CEO, and I remember just feeling really nervous about it, but it was really, really cool to get that chance to talk to someone who has been with the firm for a long time and sort of sees the top-down business strategy that the firm kind of goes through. Another really important part of Kittleson's internship program are meet and greets. So you're encouraged to schedule half an hour to 1 hour meetings with various staff members throughout the firm, whether they're in your office or outside of it. And these meet and greets can be with anyone from the CFO of the firm all the way down to the other analysts in your region. So these meet and greets are really great ways to get integrated and to get acquainted with people all across Kittleson. As part of your workload, you're also sort of expected to do some report writing and graphic development, work with different softwares, conduct different traffic analyses, spatial analyses, and you also get exposed to day-in accounting. Our interns are also expected to collect data, do field work, attend technical training sessions, which are really, really cool ways, one, to meet people throughout the firm because they are open to all the other interns and also some of the entry-level staff, and also get acquainted with some of the experts that we have here at Kittleson. And you also get to attend public meetings and client meetings as well. But perhaps the highlight of the summer for interns, or actually, so as an intern, you sort of gain access to a whole bunch of different skills and you grow in a lot of different ways. So in the technical sphere, you get access or you get exposed to projects in design, planning, operations, and research, which we have webinars on coming up. You also gain professional skills like public speaking, networking, and really strong mentorship. One of Kittleson's priorities when we put you in the intern program is that we match you to a mentor who can sort of help you get project work that is within your interest, and you also develop a lot personally. I know for me personally, I came out of that internship with a lot more confidence. This was the internship that made me decide that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in transportation, and also a lot of new friends. I'm actually still in contact with everyone in my intern class. We have a group chat. We check in on each other every so often, and it's really fun. And one of the highlights of our intern program, our traditional intern program, is the Intern Jamboree. So the Intern Jamboree is a 4-day program where they actually fly all the interns out to one office and we attend presentations. In Portland in the summer of 2019, we did a bike tour of the city of Portland. There's also all kinds of social events, and we also schedule meet and greets with everyone we can in the office so we could get that face-to-face time with other staff members. And overall, it's honestly one of the highlights of the summer. And I think pretty much every former intern that has gone through the Intern Jamboree would say the same. Now, this past summer, we had to pivot in 2020 because of COVID, and I'm going to hand this part over to Caitlin.
Thanks, Joss. Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Mildner. I'm a transportation analyst in our Washington, D.C. office, which is where I am right now. I was also an intern in the class of 2017, I believe. So similar to Joss, it was an amazing experience for myself and really fell in love with the company, fell in love with transportation consulting, and learned a lot about what we do through our internship program. So I work in DC. I work mostly on planning projects. I got my master's in city planning from Georgia Tech. And I really work on a variety of projects here in our Northeast. We work really closely across offices. So I often help out the Boston office, Philadelphia office, Charlotte, and even over on the West Coast. So that's something really neat about Kittleson that our interns get to experience too, is that you might be assigned to an office, but you're really assigned to an entire company with tons of offices and get to reach out to anyone within the company. But like Joss mentioned, this past year has been pretty tough in a variety of ways. I think for everyone, it's made us question and have to change around the way that we do things. We've been doing our internship program for several years now, and it's always a highlight for a lot of people. Even our full-time staff love to interact with the interns and talk with them and work with them. So when COVID came around, we had already hired our interns. You know, we had already secured positions. We had started to talk about relocation, started to pair the interns with their mentors, and we were even planning the Intern Jamboree. So it was a big a big change that we had to adjust to, but we were committed to continuing to offer something to the interns that we had already accepted. So instead of just canceling the internship altogether, because our offices are all working remotely pretty much at this point, we sat down and we talked with the CEO and we talked with the company leaders, and we tried to figure out what we could offer the interns, and we figured something online would be the most practical. And we did have to reduce the timeline of the internship. As Joss mentioned, it's typically 40 hours a week and during 12 weeks in the summer. So it's full time, and the interns are working on projects the entire time. So this summer, things were a little more uncertain. So we shortened the internship to 20 hours a week, so part-time, and for 4 weeks, so for just a month. And it was fully virtual. So let me skip to the next slide. So this is an overview of our destination Kittleson Online. So that's what we were calling this new internship. Is kind of a test case, really, for what an online internship program could look like. Because in the past, it's always been in person. We fly all the interns together for a jamboree. So really not conducive to a pandemic. And it was fully online, and instead of the interns working on projects, they were actually involved more so in trainings. So each week, the interns had a pretty structured schedule of when the sessions would be, and each week had a different training topic. So some of the topics were roundabout training, we had a session on transit training, safety, complete streets, and these training sessions were hosted by our full-time staff and really people who are experts in these topics and experts in the transportation industry. And the trainings consisted of presentations and some workshops and group exercises to get the interns collaborating and working together to solve problems that we solve day to day in our consulting practice. So in addition to the trainings, the interns were engaged in a few different things. Technical sessions is something that we do every year. Joss touched on it briefly. Technical sessions are, again, hosted by our full-time staff and cover a range of planning topics and engineering topics. We've had sessions on visa microsimulation. We've had sessions on public engagement, as well as sessions from our CEO and our finance team, who talks about what it's like to run a consulting company, what it's like to be a consultant, to have project time and billable hours, and all of the things that you don't really see in the public sector. Something new that we tried out this summer were project live streams. So if there's any video gamers out there, it's similar to watching someone play video games live and interacting with them, but instead our full-time staff were just working on their projects and broadcasting it to the interns to ask questions real time, which was really exciting. And I know our full-time staff liked to show off what they do, because a lot of us are really passionate about the projects we're involved in and really get to interact with the interns and ask their questions and show them how to do GIS, show them how to develop a scope and budget for a project, how to design a report in Illustrator. We had a range of topics covered in those project live streams. And then another, one of my favorite pieces of being an intern and really just being a part of Kittleson are the meet and greets that are encouraged. So this is something that's encouraged for the interns as well as our full-time staff. Meet and greets are essentially just time that you schedule in someone else's calendar to get to know them and to meet them by video chat. And maybe you're meeting over coffee or a lunch virtually, and really just getting to know what they do and building your network of transportation professionals. So that's something that the interns said was a highlight of their virtual internship. And lastly, a few interns did stay on past the 4 weeks to assist with project work. And that was really a case-by-case basis, depending on the office needs and depending on the mentor workload, but we did have a few interns stay on, which was really nice. So we had a few highlights from our trial run virtual internship, which was really nice to see and get feedback from the interns about what they thought. And these were some of the highlights that kept coming up. One was just the exposure to the broad range of transportation topics. Our interns, some of them were in their PhD programs in transportation and knew a lot more than some of the undergraduate students who really didn't know a lot about transportation. So really everyone gained exposure and got to know what we do as consultants, what we don't do, and got to narrow down their decision as to whether transportation consulting is right for them. Additionally, through the meet and greets, through the project live streams, through the intern group projects, the interns really got to start to build their network and build their relationships with people in the transportation industry. And we always say that it's a pretty small industry, and you'll likely see your peers again and again, whether or not our interns ended up at Kittleson. We work with them on projects, and sometimes they're our clients if they work in the public sector. So it's really rewarding to stay connected, like Joss mentioned, still staying connected to her intern class. So that was a big highlight from the internship program. And just in terms of hands-on learning with the training and exercises that were given, as well as thoughtful discussions and conversations with our company's leadership team, with our CEO, with our operations leader, and our other leaders in each of the regions the interns all had access to. So in total, the interns received 80 hours of trainings and workshops and group activity, as well as a few interns who got to do some project work. So moving ahead into 2021, which is probably why you are all here this evening, is wanting to know what our internship program looks like in 2021. And we've talked through what it typically looks like in the past, what it looked like this past summer, and we're really still trying to figure out what it's going to look like in 2021. We are fully committed to offering an internship program for interns this upcoming summer. We're not fully sure what that's going to look like, but it's going to likely be a combination of our full-blown internship and our virtual internship. We have offices around the country. Some states, some cities are going back into the office more than others. Here in Washington, D.C., we're all still working remotely, so it could be based on the office location as to how likely it is for an intern to be able to go in person. But with that being said, we are really excited to be talking to you all tonight, excited to be answering your questions. We can dig more into what our upcoming internship will look like, but it will be happening, and Joss and I are excited. Our planning team is currently planning and working on it and figuring out what it will look like this summer, and we have a lot of time to prepare. So I think it's going to be really a great experience. So I'm looking forward to being a part of the planning team for our internship. So now I'm going to pass it back to Joss, who's going to talk about what we're looking for, what type of interns are really succeed in our internship program.
All right, thanks, Caitlin. So the question that I'm sure a lot of you are wondering is how do I become a Kittleson intern? So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about who we're looking for. So we're looking for students who are enrolled in undergraduate, graduate, or PhD programs. If you're a recent graduate, we encourage you to apply full-time on our website. We are looking for people who are passionate about transportation, highly communicative, and eager to learn new skills. So to apply for our internship program, there are 3 main steps. So you can go to our application online at kittleson.com/express-interests, fill out the application and submit a resume and a cover letter. and fill out the questionnaire. So on that questionnaire, I think there should be 4 or 5 questions that we ask you to provide a written response to, and we ask that you be really thoughtful with your responses and try to convey that passion for transportation and those communication skills that you have. Once you apply online, one of our staff members will contact you with next steps. So that usually means that you'll get a phone screening scheduled and then go through our interview process. Our interview process is a little bit more involved than interviews at other firms because we really want to make sure that we match you with a mentor whose skills and experience match your interests. We put a lot of thought into our hiring process for both interns and full-time staff, so you can expect to talk to a handful of staff members during your interview process. Once again, we don't really have any kind of requirements. There's no major requirements. There's no age or like class requirements for attending the or for being part of the internship program. We're really just looking for someone who's passionate about transportation, has some good communication skills. With that, I think we can open up for questions now.
Great. Thank you so much, Caitlin and Joss. And I'm excited to see all the questions that have been coming through in addition to what we received from our RSVP form. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of jump into some of those questions that have come through. But I encourage you guys to keep sending in questions as they come to mind, and we'll try to match your energy. So if you want to stay a little past the hour, if we have multiple questions, then so will we. So I'll go ahead and start with a question that was asked a couple of times, and Joss, since you're the most recent intern, I think you can answer this one. But it was a question about what's expected of an intern who is working at Kittleson.
Yeah, so like I said, interns are pretty much expected to do all the same things that entry-level staff do. You know, I was in GIS, I was in CAD doing spatial analysis, doing concept designs. I was working on active transportation plans. I was really like getting into the weeds on project work. The other kind of big piece of our internship program is that sort of social networking and mentorship aspect. So you work really closely with your mentors, you attend technical training sessions, you schedule as many meet and greets as you can possibly manage in your schedule. But yeah, I think the expectation is that interns are ready to get to work. I really just pretty much on my first day, I sat down for a little GIS training session with my mentor, and then I just went into some spatial analysis. It was pretty much my first time ever working with GIS. And that's actually happened to me a lot even now as full-time staff. I'm pretty much just expected to hop in on project work and help out wherever I can. So yeah, that's kind of the expectation. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that sounds great. Unless Caitlin wanted to add anything else, I can jump to the next one. Perfect. All right. Caitlin, here's a question for you. Are there part-time internship opportunities that can result in securing a permanent position with the firm?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. I feel like there are multiple things I want to touch on in that question. So one thing to know with Kittleson is that if you get an internship with us, you're not necessarily guaranteed a full-time position. So I know a lot of consulting companies on the last day of your internship, they'll sit you in a room and they'll give you an offer letter. We don't do that. And I remember at the end of my internship, I knew I wanted to work with Kittleson, and my staff, my team, they said, okay, this is great. You did a really awesome job. Now go and look elsewhere. Like go and look at all of your options. Like we really want to push students to not take the first thing that becomes available to them. We want to make sure that if you choose Kittleson, that you really looked at all your options. You looked at the public sector, you looked at other consultants, and you can be confident in your decision to come and join us. So that was hard for me to hear as an intern because I wanted to work here, but ultimately it was good in the end. So that was one part. Another piece of that question is the part-time internship. So we have had in some cases interns intern with us during the summer, which we have a very set time because we want all our interns to be interning with us at the same time and interacting with each other. But in some cases, interns have stayed on working part-time as they have gone back to school. So they stay with us working a part-time, maybe 20 hours a week or whatever their school schedule permits. And it's really a case-by-case basis. That's something that we encourage the interns to express interest to their mentors and to really talk through with them to figure out a game plan that best suits the needs of us and you.
Great, thanks, Caitlin. This next one, Joss, I'll go ahead and hand this over to you. But it's someone wondering if interns are expected to have experience working with software such as GIS or AutoCAD before starting at Kittleson.
The short answer is no. We don't expect you to come in with a bunch of software knowledge. I definitely didn't come in with a whole bunch of software knowledge. I mean, I had, well, Kittleson was pretty much my first foray into GIS. I did have a little bit of CAD experience coming in from school and some other internships and work that I've done. But no, we don't really expect anyone to come in with all of the technical knowledge you need. We have people coming in from all different backgrounds. We have people coming in from engineering backgrounds and from planning backgrounds with a wide array of skills, and every program is different. So there is no real expectation that you have baseline knowledge of any one software. The most important thing in a Kittleson internship is that you are teachable. If you're open to learning new things and eager to learn new things and willing and able to ask questions, you can pick up softwares pretty quickly. We can teach you how to do that.
Yeah, I would add one thing to that. I've seen a few other questions asked about this, so I figured it kind of ties in is what's that one thing we're looking for that sets people apart? And it's not your expertise in GIS. It's not how well you know AutoCAD and all of those things. Like Joss mentioned, we can teach you those things, and those are things you can really learn on the job. But it's those skills, but it's also your passion for transportation. Like everyone in our company is so passionate about what we do, and we really try to look for that in cover letters and resumes. Are you involved in extracurricular activities related to transportation? Does that passion really come through in your application? So we really look for that passion, that drive. Something really unique to Kittleson is that we have a pretty flat structure. So I don't know if you all have seen our other presentations. Sorry if you have. This is going to be repetitive, but we really look for people who are self-starters and who are motivated. You will be given a mentor when you start, but it's also up to you to secure projects and to determine what it is you want to do. Do you want to do planning? Do you want to do engineering? Do you want to focus on GIS? It's up to you to reach out to people across the country in Kittleson and find those opportunities for yourself. You'll have tons of resources, but it's really driven. It's really self-driven.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one kind of thing to add on to that is like, we can't always expect people to come in with technical skills because every program is different, right? So for me at UCLA, we actually didn't have a transportation engineering track. So I was a civil engineering student who was doing most of my classes in water resources. Now I did an urban planning minor, which helped kind of round out my program a little bit, but I wasn't really coming in with a lot of technical knowledge about transportation. And here I am. It all worked out.
Great, and that actually segues really well into another question. So Caitlin or Joss, if either one of you wanted to answer this one, but some people have been interested in knowing if you are coming from outside of the industry, is there anything specific that intern recruiters are going to want to see on your resume or cover letter, if that should look, I guess, any different?
Yeah, I would say kind of similar to what we said, just about being passionate about transportation, but that might be hard if you are coming from a different industry and don't know a lot about transportation. So maybe it's more so you're curious about transportation and you want to know more and you've seen things that are interesting to you. Like we want to hear that story. We want to hear why you're choosing Kittleson. What about us appealed to you? Is it the opportunity for leadership? Are you excited to get into a new industry that you haven't experienced in school? Yeah, Joss, anything to build on that? I guess you kind of came from a somewhat different industry.
Yeah,
Like
I
in
suppose.
field, yeah.
I mean, I guess. I mean, I was a civil engineering major, so there was like the obvious connection there. But I think
Mhm.
for for me, like I'm part of the university outreach team, so I do screen interns. And what we really look for is a compelling story, right? If you're coming from outside of transportation, I really want to know, why do you want to go into transportation, right? And it can't just be like, it can't just be like, oh, I'm just looking for a job and I'll do anything right now. You know, like we're really looking for why you're interested in transportation, what led you to transportation. And it doesn't matter if you don't have prior experience, if you can kind of tell that compelling story of how you decided that transportation was the right place for you.
Great, thank you both. And then we've also gotten a couple of questions from people wondering, what were some memories or specific things about Kittleson that really solidified the answer of, I really want to work with Kittleson after my internship. Do you have any stories, or were there, specific aspects of Kittleson that really made you feel that way?
Oh man, I could go on and on about this. I had a fantastic time in my internship program. Like even with, so I'm a California girl. I grew up in California. I have never lived anywhere else. And when I applied for the internship program, Kittleson was like, do you want to go to Tampa? I had never really experienced rain in the summertime before. The level of humidity was honestly unmatched. I had never lived in a place like that before. It was like the air was swampy. It wasn't just swampy like it was Florida. The air was swampy. But I really wanted to do this program and I was really excited about it. So I moved to Florida. I subleased my apartment, found someone that was taking classes and working in LA over the summer, subleased my apartment, joined some university housing groups out in Florida, picked up and moved. And then I landed in Florida and I was like, wow, I'm really here. Like I'm on my own. But it was actually a really great, it was a really, really great experience. My mentor came to my apartment and like helped me go shopping and like pick stuff up and stuff like that. It was really, really great. And then I had my first few days in the office and I was pretty much thrown into project work right away. Day one, GIS training, here's some Florida Department of Transportation planning studies that you need to do. So I was getting into that. And I just remember like being so immersed in the in kind of this intern experience and just being so like being in a brand new place and also like working on all these really cool things. And I just had a really great experience in Florida. On top of that, in 2019, I did get to travel. I did get to go to Portland for the Intern Jamboree. I actually did visit the Baltimore and DC offices for a few days. And like, I think I really got a chance to connect with people in the firm. But even outside of the travel, there were a lot of really great opportunities for me. I was working on some really cool active transportation plans and planning studies out in Florida. I did a bike trail design project, which was really cool. So I had a little bit of CAD experience, but most of my CAD experience was in like intersections. So getting to design like a bike trail was really, really cool. That's one of my favorite projects from the summer. And I think for me, like I just loved being around people that were really nerdy about transportation, right? So I'm really nerdy about transportation. You can ask all of my friends if I'm driving around or walking around with them, I will complain about the sidewalks and the intersection layouts. And I just enjoyed being in an environment where everybody sort of understood that.
Yeah, I can give a few. Like Joss, there are so many things that just really made Kittleson feel unique. I think from the beginning, even just you could see how much Kittleson was investing in their interns, and it wasn't even with the expectation that we were going to work for them full time. Someone said to me, they're investing in our learning and our growth because we're going to be in the transportation industry and we're going to be making a difference, and they want to be a part of teaching us and starting out our career, and that was really special. And when I got my offer for my internship, my mentors immediately reached out to me. They started talking about where I should live and helping me find a location. I did see one question that asked about moving to a new location and how are we expected to pay rent into places. And I will say that when interns move to a new city, Kittleson does give them a relocation stipend. which I was really excited about. So that's to help cover cost of moving if you want to ship your bicycle. So Kittleson helps out with some of those moving costs, which is really nice, just as an intern, and my mentors offered to pick me up from the airport, and it just felt so friendly and already like a family, and I hadn't even gotten there yet. But on more of the project and on more of the day-to-day side of things, I would say I was really blown away with how much time people gave you. So as an intern, you're learning new things and you have millions of questions every single day. And no one ever made me feel like I was asking too many questions. Every time I would come up to someone's desk and they're working on their computer, they look really, really focused. And I'd say, hey, sorry, I have a question. They would shut everything down, turn and give me their full attention. And it could be 15 minutes, it could have been turned into an hour. Like, people are just really, really good at giving you attention and giving you what you need to learn and to grow. So that was really amazing, and also just a good lesson for me, because it's hard for me now working here to stop what I'm doing and to answer someone's question and to give someone time. But I'm surrounded by people who do that. So they're just setting a good example for me. And then one more thing is that so as an entry-level staff at Kittleson, you come in at the same level, no matter what your background was. So Joss has an engineering background. I have a planning background, not a day of engineering. And we both came in as transportation analysts. And as an intern, you come in as an entry-level staff, essentially. So I was amazed on day one that I was working on engineering projects and signal timing and design and things that I honestly didn't feel qualified to do because I didn't learn that in school. And in my planning program, there were planning classes and there were engineering classes. And it was kind of hard to get into one from the other side. So I loved that didn't matter. Your passions mattered. I know engineers who work on planning projects. I know planners who like more engineering operations type work. So it's really, again, a testament to you choosing your own journey within Kittleson, and you can really feel that even at the intern level.
That's great, thank you. And on the subject of projects, Joss, I'll hand this one off to you, but there's been a couple of questions about were there any projects that really excited you to be working on during your internship? Was there one that stood out, or that got you really, really excited?
Yeah, absolutely. I worked on a lot of really cool things in my summer in Florida. So the Florida Department of Transportation works very, very differently from Caltrans. It was like nothing that I had ever really done before, because Caltrans tends to do a lot of work in-house, so a lot of big California projects are sort of done by Caltrans. FDOT is pretty different. FDOT contracts out almost all of their work to consultants. So we got these huge state contracts in Florida where we were working on some really, really big projects. One of my favorite projects, and one of the first projects that I worked on, was the Florida Department of Transportation. It was a roadway resurfacing and rehabilitation program. So every year, each FDOT district picks like 5 or so roadways to completely resurface. So they just kind of tear up the pavement and put it back in. And this is our opportunity to kind of get in and be like, hey, maybe there's some improvements that you can make on the striping to make them complete streets, right? So it was a complete streets project. And it was on a state route, and it was like a pretty industrial area, but the county, I think it was the county of Hillsborough, was actually planning on adding a trail connection. So there were 2 trails on either side of this like really heavy industrial state route. And we basically had to come up with a good way to make sure that cyclists and pedestrians could cross this heavy industrial state route safely, because obviously a lot of times trucks and pedestrians just don't really mix. So that was a really interesting project and something that really kind of stretched both my engineering and planning knowledge. So that one was really, really cool.
That's great, thank you. And then we've gotten a couple questions. Caitlin, I think that you can answer this one, but about what opportunities Kittleson provides for international students specifically.
Yeah, sure. Same as other students, we've hired international students in the past for internships and for full-time positions. So yeah, definitely apply. We've done it before. We know all the steps and all the paperwork to fill out to do that. So yeah, definitely apply.
Great. And Joss, I think you can answer this one well since you recently went through this process, but we've gotten a couple questions asking about people who are graduating in May 2021, and they're wondering if you would recommend doing a summer internship or starting to apply for full-time positions directly after graduation.
Honestly, I think this is kind of case by case. I went in and applied for full-time positions. I didn't really see a need to do an internship and then apply for full-time jobs 3 months later. I know that because of COVID, the job hunting landscape looks really, really different. So I know there are lots of other firms and agencies that do hire interns that are not students, that are recent graduates. So I don't really know. I would say that, you know, in the environment that we're in and kind of the uncertainty around job hunting, that it might be valuable to look into intern positions even as a recent graduate. However, Kittleson does not offer internships to recent graduates. So if you're interested in working for Kittleson, definitely apply for a full-time position. Definitely apply for a full-time position if you're graduating in 2021. Now, definitely other firms and agencies have intern programs for recent graduates that are open to recent graduates. So if that's something that you would be interested in, or something that you think you could get a lot of value out of, then I would definitely recommend going for it.
Yeah, and I'll add one thing that I've heard is that sometimes we say that it's almost harder to get an internship with Kittleson than a full-time position sometimes. So it might be in your favor to apply for a full-time position, but it really just depends on the season.
Yeah.
Great. And Caitlin, I will send this one off to you. Is it possible for graduate students to have an internship while they're expected to be working on research over the summer?
Yeah, again, it's case by case. We have had interns in the past who have done research or classes even, and the internship, it's definitely going to be harder to do, especially during our normal internship, which is full time. It's 40 hours. You know, and we really want you committed and giving yourself fully to the internship program. This past year, 2021, it's a little different. You know, schools have different requirements. So we did have an intern who continued researching. We can work with you, you know, if your program requires a certain number of hours, like my graduate program did. We can definitely work with you. So don't let that deter you from applying. I think we do a good job kind of meeting the needs and meeting people where they're at and what kind of experience they're looking for.
Great. And Joss, when did you discover that you were interested in transportation, and what steps did you take to get into the industry?
Yeah, so I came into UCLA my freshman year as a civil engineering major, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do or if I even wanted to stick to civil engineering. Or you know what I was interested in. And I think what I did was I joined a lot of student groups. So I joined the American Society of Civil Engineers, I joined the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and I just sort of started getting involved in like different student projects and organizations. But I think what sort of started it all for me is actually when I was a sophomore, I had applied to become the media director of our student chapter of the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and we were hosting a student professional mixer. And one of the board members for the Western District of ITE attended our event, a lady named Neelam Dorman, who used to work for Kittleson but now works for the city of Anaheim. And she's actually the one that first got me connected to Kittleson as a sophomore, and second, sort of sparked my interest in transportation. And something that she said that still sticks with me is transportation is a basic human need, right? So everything that we have, everything that we need, everything that, like really everything is only available to us if we can get to it or if it can get to us. So transportation, I think, is a really unique place where we can really make a positive impact on people's lives. And that's something that's always really, really stuck with me, that like I could use my training and my skills to really make people's lives better. And that's what sort of drew me to transportation. And then from there, I sort of just took off in kind of the transportation space at UCLA. I eventually became the president of ITE at UCLA, picked up a minor in urban planning, took a lot of transportation planning graduate courses out of the UCLA School of Public Affairs, which was really cool. And then I ended up here, so I actually did not intern for Kittleson the summer after my sophomore year. It was the summer after my junior year. I had applied to the internship. And started the process, and then ended up choosing a different firm. But knew I wanted to come back to Kittleson. Like once I kind of went through this process, I was like, all right, I have to do this program. So I came back to Kittleson way earlier the next time around. I think I applied in like August. The second time around, and got in a whole lot earlier. So I know I did see a couple questions about like what is sort of the timeline. I say just apply as soon as possible. I'm already screening intern candidates, so if you send in your application, we will look at it now as we sort of sift through our intern class for next summer.
Great, thanks, Joss. That also segues into the next question that you mentioned we've seen a couple of, but some people are wondering, since we are still kind of developing the way that we're running our virtual internship, what does the timeline look for that? And when, I guess, is the process going to start and potentially end? Caitlin, if you want to take that one.
Yeah, sure. We don't have like a hard start or a hard end. Like Joss mentioned, we are getting applications right now. In tandem with these webinars, we're also doing university outreach virtually. So we're doing virtual sessions with a bunch of universities across the country for both internship and full-time positions. So as we're having those, people are applying. And yeah, I would just echo Joss to apply as soon as you can. We are likely to make decisions given the holidays, probably early 2021. We'll make our decisions. We don't have the dates yet for our internship program, but it's typically starts like June, July timeframe, and we know a few months ahead of time. So sorry, it's kind of a fuzzy answer, but I'd say apply when you can. Expect to hear from us in early 2021. And yeah, the interview process is a little lengthy. You'll have, several rounds, several phone calls and video calls. So we do like to get started sooner than later on those.
Great. And then going off of that, Joss, you could probably answer this one, but how many interns are hired each summer, and does remote working increase the number of spots?
So I think traditionally we hire about a dozen or so interns. My intern class, I think, was 12 people. And then last year's intern class, I think we actually went up to 19. This year, we aren't 100% sure what our intern program is going to look like yet. We're thinking it might be a combination of the 2020 internship, which was almost entirely just technical sessions and training sessions and like meet and greets, with like the kind of traditional 40-hour-a-week project work internship. So we aren't sure how many spots that we're going to offer. Unfortunately, it's not likely that we're going to be able to offer 19 interns spaces this year. It really just sort of depends on what our project outlook looks like this summer. I know this is a kind of a non-answer too, but we're definitely working it out. We are committed to having our intern program, so we will have interns. How many is something we are not super set on yet.
Yeah, I would say too, in the past, it's typically grown each year when we've done them in person. So Joss's intern class was a little bit larger than mine. This past year was the largest that we've ever had. And, we had that number before we knew we were going virtually. So I'd say our trajectory was growing. This kind of took a spin on things, but I think this upcoming summer for our interns, we do want them to work on projects because I think that's such a critical part of the internship. So I think we will probably err on the side of fewer interns to give them a more quality experience. So instead of just getting as many as we can and giving them just a little bit. I think we'd rather give a smaller number, more responsibility. So I think we're saying that looks like anywhere from 6 to 12, 6 to 15 range. I know it's kind of a big range, but somewhere in there. And so not all of our offices have interns. You know, I forget how many offices we have at this point. Over 20 offices. We've
Like
never
26,
had.
I think.
Yeah, we've never had an intern in every office. If you look at our map, some of our offices have one person.
Yeah.
So we have satellite offices around, and the offices who have interns, it really depends on the workload, and it depends on whether or not there's a staff who wants to mentor an intern. So it's a voluntary process. Someone like me or Joss has to say, hey, I'm feeling ready this summer. I want to mentor an intern. You know, I want someone to be with me. I'll give them work. I'll support them all summer. So it really depends on that as to which offices are participating.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Then we can jump into some more technical questions that we've gotten a couple of on the RSVP form as well as during the webinar. But some people are really interested in learning some tips or tricks for cover letters and specifically what employers are looking for in cover letters. And Joss, I see you nodding your head if you want to take that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say cover letters are hard. They are still hard for me. So yeah, don't worry if you feel kind of lost as to like, you know, I submitted a resume, why do I have to submit a cover letter? I think the point of a cover letter is not to regurgitate your resume. Please do not repeat everything that you said in your resume in paragraph form. It is kind of a waste of time for people to read just a duplicate of your resume. When you're writing a cover letter, I think what I think you should focus on, and obviously like this is just my opinion, and I would definitely also recommend getting your resumes and cover letters looked at by as many people as possible so that you get kind of a broad perspective. But for me personally, when I'm screening interns or when I'm reading cover letters, what I really look for is like, why do you want to work for Kittleson specifically? Right. So I think a cover letter is really, really valuable when you really, really want to work for a company, when you really, really want to work for a firm. Right. I've definitely submitted job applications where I didn't submit a cover letter because I wasn't super like, oh, I wasn't like, oh, I really want to work for this place. You know, like I didn't really have anything that like really drew me to that place. I was just sending in a job application. So in that case, that's when I wouldn't submit a cover letter. But if you do submit a cover letter, I would say that that's your place to talk a little bit about why you might be a good fit for the company and why the company would be a good fit for you, right? So it not just talking about your skills, but also talking about like the company's values and like the kind of work style, I guess. So if you look on our website, right, we have like all of these spiels about our values and our core principles and like how we like to run, like how we like to operate here at Kittleson. And it would be really valuable for you to take some of that language and put it in your cover letter and be kind of like, you know, I would be a good fit for Kittleson because you guys like this and I am this. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. All right, it looks like we have some more questions coming in as well. Specifically, Caitlin, you might know the answer to this, but we've gotten a couple questions about opportunities for international students that are on OPT status. Do you know if we still offer internships for that?
Actually, not familiar what that stands for. Are either of you? OPT?
Yeah, so
yeah, go ahead, Joss, sorry.
yeah, so OPT is, I don't know what it stands for, but it's basically like your work authorization. It's like a work authorization time or something that you're allowed to stay in the United States to work. And as far as I know, OPT is only offered after you graduate, right? I'm not an international student, but my roommate is. So I've seen like my roommate and a lot of my friends go through that process. So yeah, I guess the short answer is we do hire international students. That is not a barrier for us. So if you are an international student, send in your application. Like there are people who know how to do that kind of stuff. But I personally don't know what that process looks like or what any of the actual technical terms are for hiring international students. But yes, if you're an international student, you can apply.
Great, thanks, Joss. I think that answered it really well. We've also gotten some questions regarding what the length of our internship is and if there's opportunities for it to go a little bit longer, or yeah, what that's going to look like for 2021.
So
Yeah.
oh, go ahead, Caitlin.
For 2021 specifically, April?
Mm.
Yeah, for 2021, we're still trying to figure out how long that's going to be, what it's going to look like. Like I mentioned, typically it's 12 weeks. So that would be the absolute longest it would be, 3 months. And then our virtual internship was only 4 weeks. It'll be somewhere in between 4 weeks and 12 weeks. We're not really sure, but you know, like I said, if you have requirements with school, we've had interns stay on longer and continue to work with us. So we can work with you based on, you know, what your needs are. And I think as the planning team solidifies what this program will look like, what the timeline will look like, we will let you all know during the interview process. So you're not just kind of applying for something that you don't know what to expect necessarily. So I imagine that early next year, early in 2021, we will be able to just give you a better indication of what the timeline will be, how many hours per week, and all of that. So stay tuned.
Yeah, so my internship was 12 weeks, but also like we don't necessarily we don't really require all of our interns to start at the same time in a traditional internship either. For me, I know I couldn't start until I think like July, and I had people in my intern class that had started mid-May because they were done with school by like the end of April. So yeah, we will definitely be able to work with you and your school schedules. And there's probably a couple things there's like one thing that we want all of our interns there for, which is the Jamboree. As far as a virtual internship, in 2020, we had like all of our interns working, like all of our interns in over a 4-week program. Now that's a lot easier to coordinate because 4 weeks of overlap during a summertime is pretty easy to find, whereas 12 weeks is a little bit harder. So those start and end dates do definitely stagger.
Great, thank you. And we are getting close to time, so I'll ask a couple more if we can fit those in. This is a follow-up to the question that I asked earlier about knowledge of specific programs. And so this attendee asked, since you commented that certain knowledge of a specific program is not necessarily required or looked for in an applicant, I'm curious as to what would be some strong examples of work samples to send in.
Yeah, so actually, I'm not sure if we necessarily require work samples. I think that's something that if you have one, you can submit it. So people have submitted drawings from past internships, maps from past internships. But honestly, a writing sample could also be really helpful. Like if you wrote a paper or something like that, that's definitely a work sample that you could submit. I don't know, Caitlin, do you?
Yeah. I've seen, yeah, we don't require it, but I would say it does make you stand out, especially if it's a good work sample that you send in. A lot of the time, people will send in like a capstone or a thesis or a group project. I think seeing that someone works really well in a group setting is really key because we work in a project team, so we are always working with other people. So I think it's good to show that you worked as a team, maybe you took leadership role, you know, had a critical part of the team. So that's something. You don't feel pressure to send in something that only has your name on it. We get a lot of applications that have group projects and multiple people in it. So that's a good one to do. But I think work samples that show multiple dimensions, so writing, technical, maybe design, storytelling, you know, anything that kind of shows a broad range of skills is usually pretty impressive.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
I don't think I submitted a work sample from my Kittleson application, so I don't think you have to have one, but yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we only have 1 minute left, so we can go ahead and wrap up. Thank you again to our presenters and to everyone who took the time to join us this evening. If you do have additional questions for the presenters, you can find both Caitlin and Joss's emails on our website if you just search their name. And we encourage you to check out any of the remaining sessions that we have in the Kittleson Conversation series to see if any of those conversations cover a topic that you're going to be interested in. And for some of the people asking if there's going to be a recording of this session, yes, there's going to be a follow-up email sent out to you with the recording and links to RSVP for the 4 remaining sessions in the series. So we hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.